Welcome to episode 3 of America 250, my series celebrating 250 years of the United States, telling stories of people, places, and events that you didn't hear about in the history books. Today, we're at a park that most people have never heard of, a battlefield that most people have never heard of, and that is Bluff Battlefield. Near Leesburg, Virginia. More specifically, this is Leesburg, Virginia. It's right here within the city limits of Leesburg. Shortly, we'll be standing atop Bluff, and we'll tell a story about this battle, Civil War battle, that most people never even heard of. In fact, later in the war, it would have been considered a skirmish, but because of the events that happened here, not too far from this location at the entrance of the park, something happened that not only changed the scope of the war at the beginning, but also changed how politicians handle their dealings with the military, even to this day. The date is October 21st, 1861. Lincoln has only been president for a handful of months. Mood across the river in D.C. is incredibly dark. Trust is in remarkably short supplies. Military and political defections to the Confederacy happening regularly. Spies everywhere. Paranoia is running high in the capital. On top of that, the Union Army is reeling from the humiliation of a massive defeat at Bull Run just a few months prior. Political pressure for the Army to step up and get a win is thick. Washington wants a decisive victory. What started as a simple scouting mission across the Potomac to secure that win turned into a disastrous trap, all because of a trick of light. Let's take a walk and see how a phantom Confederate camp changed the course of the war. Because of that faulty intelligence about the tents, Union troops were ordered across the Potomac. But here was the fatal flaw. They hardly had any boats. Out of 7,000 federal troops in the area, only about 1,700 actually made it across the river because of the bottleneck. They were trickling over in small groups when the Confederates, led by Brigadier General Nathan Shanks Evans, realized what was happening, and he counterattacked. The Union troops fell back. They found their backs completely pressed against the steep 130-foot drop of the bluff, with very little option of escape. It was a slaughter. Union Army brought their artillery up the banks here from the Potomac. Ultimately, they ended up being captured. Each piece of artillery weighing about 500 pounds. By late afternoon, the Union line broke, panic set in. Imagine hundreds of exhausted, terrified soldiers scrambling down this exact steep slope to escape the Confederate volley. They hit the water, but the nightmare wasn't over. The few boats they had were instantly swamped by desperate men, causing them to capsize. Many soldiers, weighed down by heavy wool, uniforms, and gear, drowned in the swift currents. The following days, bodies floated down and towards Washington D.C. for all the politicians and spectators to witness themselves, bringing the absolute horror of war directly to the doorsteps of those paranoid politicians. Among the Union dead was Colonel Edwin Baker, who also happened to be a sitting U.S. Senator and one of Abraham Lincoln's closest friends. Just weeks earlier, before the battle, he was on the White House lawn playing with the Lincoln children. He remains the only sitting U.S. Senator to ever be killed in battle. That dark, untrusting mood we talked about earlier had reached a boiling point. Congress was so outraged by this defeat that they organized a joint committee on the conduct of war, forever changing the relationship between politicians and our nation's warriors. Today, the scars of that day are marked here in the third smallest national cemetery in the United States. Within these stone walls lies 54 Union soldiers. 53 of them are completely unknown. Only one, Private James Allen, of the 15th Massachusetts, is identified. Bluff might not be the most famous Civil War battle, but the ramifications of what happened here on that day, well, it affected the nation, the trust that our politicians have in our warriors. On that day, America changed, and that's why this site fits perfectly into our series, America 250. as the shockwaves that followed helped weave the fabric of our nation for years to come. Today the cemetery is closed, so we can't walk in and honor the dead from within the cemetery, but the story is an important one, and this graveyard is part of our nation's history. It should be remembered. One grave with a name directly across from us. The rest, unknown soldiers. Losses from the Confederate side were pretty light. Nonetheless, they knew who their men were that were gone. That's why you see a marker right here. I'm the Giant Rat, and this was the adventure. Thank you for coming along on this trip to Bluff Civil War battlefield. We'll be back soon with another America 250, celebrating 250 years of the United States through the stories, the people, places, and events didn't make the history books. See you on the next one.